hope that you're doing good. I know that's hard being away from home for so long.
Hello and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. So today's video will be another informative video, but this time I'll be covering types of accommodations in South Korea and the rent, the deposit, just basic living expenses such as food and transportation costs. So I hope that I'm helpful enough, and if there are any more queries after the video, please hit me in the comments or just DM me on Instagram, and I hope you like it. So with that, let's get to it. The first facility that I would like to mention is known as a Goshiwon. So Goshiwons are basically tiny rooms where you have a bed and a chair and a table, and that's all. Like, you have minimum storage space, and it can cost up to anywhere from $200 to $500. Now, the pros of living in a Goshiwon are that it's really cheap, and the deposit is very less. And on top of that, it's usually for students who cannot afford to live in office styles or one rooms, so it's really cost efficient. Now, when it comes to the cons of living in a Goshiwon, it's basically you do not have your own private bathroom. Some Goshiwons nowadays do provide a private washroom, but you probably might not have that, and you might have to share it with others. Similarly, if the Goshiwon has a kitchen, you need to share it with other people as well. Also, during summers and winters, the air conditioning and the temperature of the floor heating is totally managed by the Goshiwon's owner, the facility itself. So you cannot actually regulate when to switch on the floor heating system or the air conditioner. It's totally up to the person in charge, but not you. So these are the cons, but basically it is a really cost-effective place to live in for a lot of students, because finding a house in Seoul is not really easy. So nowadays a lot of students are living in Goshiwons. The walls of a Goshiwon are really thin, so people can really hear what's going on in the next room. So you gotta be really quiet when you're living in a Goshiwon, so as to not disturb your neighbor, or for that matter to not cause any problems for yourself, because people tend to complain. Share houses are basically large apartments with around 4 to 5 bedrooms, and they are rented out. Like each individual room is rented out to people so that they can just come and stay there. And you're usually staying with strangers, and you're sharing the common facilities such as the kitchen in the apartment and the dining area and the washroom with them. On top of that, share houses cost anywhere from $400 to $600, the ideal share house, and the deposit fee is minimal. Again, if you're living in Seoul, you need to pay for the internet and the utilities, which again costs around $70. And share houses it's basically used by a lot of foreign students, because they are able to get a language exchange, and they're able to mingle with other foreigners living in Seoul through share houses. So a lot of foreigners tend to go and live in share houses, because in a way you do get your privacy by having a room, but again it's not extremely private, but it's still affordable and manageable to live in, and also you don't really need to be afraid of living alone. And share houses are also gender specific, so it's just girls or just guys, so that's really convenient. The next type of accommodation is known as Hasukjib. Hasukjibs are basically big houses, maybe a building, an old building, or a few floors. They're all rooms there are rooms that are rented, and those rooms cost anywhere from $330 to $550 US. It's run by an old lady, ajumma, or an old man, ajushi, or an old married couple. So while you're living there, the pros are that you don't really need to pay for your electricity bills, your utilities. You don't need to pay for your gas bills, your water bills. Everything is included in your monthly rent. On top of that, your laundry, your cooking is basically done by the person in charge or living there. So you don't really need to worry about laundry or cooking. In that sense, Hasukjibs are very convenient. And again, it's similar to a share house, but this time you have somebody, the person in charge, the owner, living with you. And it's similar to the dormitory as well because it's a private facility instead of a university facility, and you have to share the washroom, you have to share the cooking area, you have to share the common spaces. So basically, Hasukjibs are not that different, but the only difference comes in because you're living with the owner themselves. Studio apartments are also known as one rooms because it's just a room and you have a kitchen and a washroom. It costs anywhere. Actually, there are very different, a wide range of houses and a wide range of costs. So based on your own priority, you can find a house or a studio apartment you like. But then the deposit is where things really get expensive because the deposit is anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. If you can afford more than that for the deposit, go ahead, because the higher the deposit is, the cheaper the house will be, the cheaper the monthly rent will be. In my case, I'm paying $450 a month for my house, my one room, and the deposit was $10,000. Again, these costs, the monthly rent is really affected by its location. An ideal student's one room would be anywhere from $350 or $400 to $500. Or probably $600. If you can afford more, obviously you can always go for it. It's the most private accommodation out of all the accommodations in South Korea because you have your own washroom and your own kitchen. Overall, one rooms or studio apartments are the most private but really expensive. You can always choose to live with a friend or your previous roommate in a one room or studio apartment. You can get two beds based on how furnished the apartment is if you want to bring down the cost. Because if two people are living together, you can definitely explore a bigger budget for finding a monthly rent. Yes. So based on that, based on your convenience, you can always get a roommate or not. If none of these suit you, you can always just choose to live in the dormitories. And Jeonsae University has the triple dormitories, double dormitories, and single dormitories. So based on your comfort, you can always go for whichever dormitory you like. If I have to compare the single dormitory in Jeonsae University with my studio apartment, it's almost the same price a month. It's just that I have my own kitchen and my own washroom. So it's definitely really convenient. These are all the accommodations in South Korea. You have your dormitories, your Goshiwons, your share houses, your Hasukjib, and lastly you have your studio apartments. Now that we have covered all the different types of housings and accommodations in South Korea, I will now move on to finding a studio apartment or an office style in Korea. There are many websites like Zigbang, Dabang, Peter Pan's, Craigslist, and these are basically websites or apps where you can find accommodations in Korea based on the location you want to find it in and based on the costs that is in your budget. Usually there's two ways of paying for your accommodation. There's the wolsae system and there's the jeonsae system. So wolsae is basically monthly rent along with the deposit, and then there's the jeonsae where you pay a huge sum of money for the house. It's like owning it, but the amount you're paying is so big that a lot of students do not prefer jeonsae system, and also a lot of people actually, if they're working or something, they end up getting loans to afford the place. I prefer using Zigbang, so I will just give you a tutorial as to how I used Zigbang, and I prefer using it on my computer rather than using it on my phone.
For Zigbang, you go on the website and it automatically translates to English from Korean, and then you can search a one room, two room, or an office style. The only downside is that you have to type the area in Korean. Once you do that, you will have the options of places you can see in that area. So if you zoom, this is Jeonsae University in front of you, and what you're gonna do next is you're gonna apply the filters. You're gonna adjust to whatever price you want, like the monthly rent and the deposit. And then these are the different types of housings. You have a loft apartment, a single room, or room with a divider in it. So you just basically apply all the filters that you feel like, and then you check out the apartments. Now, like if we click on this one, you can see that the rent is written on the right side and the deposit is on the left side. So the deposit is 10 million Korean won, whereas the rent is 500,000 Korean won. If you scroll down after seeing the pictures, you can see that there's a maintenance fee and what it includes. Also, it shows you all the different types of things that are available with the house and how furnished it is. And when you scroll down further, you can see the information on the real estate agency and your broker. If you click on view all, you will be able to like view all the different types of apartments they actually own, and that will give you a wider option to choose from. So when you visit them, you can just choose from different apartments. Next we have is Dabang, which means the room. When I typed that, I found a Bollywood picture instead, so I just went and checked out Dabang housing. And when you go on Dabang, you will get an option again, but this time it will be completely in Korean. It does not translate. So that's the reason why I prefer Zigbang. The first one was the normal monthly rent with the maintenance fee, and the website just shows you if pets are allowed, places with pets allowed, places without pets. So you get an option, and there you also have an option of following the charter system or the jeonsae system, where you pay this very big rent. So anyways, we will click on the normal monthly rents and we'll check it out. So now that we go on the web page, again it's the same as Zigbang, but I prefer Zigbang because Zigbang can translate into English and you understand what's given to you, what's provided, whereas Dabang is completely in Korean, and as a foreigner it's not really convenient. So as you can see, everything's visible but in Korean. So the least I like out of all three is Peter Pan's, because Peter Pan's just shows a less variety of options in my opinion. I think that Zigbang is the best, and after that you have Dabang, and then comes Peter Pan's. It's comparatively new compared to the other websites, so I guess that's why, but still Peter Pan's still has quite limited options in my opinion. I think it would be better to just use Zigbang. So you can see the house, and if you cannot read Korean, it's really futile to use Dabang and Zigbang in my opinion, because then you won't understand stuff. Lastly, we have Craigslist. So you go on Craigslist and you see apartments and housing and you click on it. So after seeing the apartments and housing, you can definitely check out all the different types of houses that are available. You can also type your required location in English. On top of that, everything is in English. So when you go and apply the filters as well, everything will be in English, and it's actually quite convenient, just that it's troublesome if you get scammed. So guys, while I was
or the information video, I recalled a very important point. That is, nowadays actually there are a few houses that do not have any insurance. So you have to really be careful, because if you go and get a room without insurance, the owner can literally run away with your deposit money and you won't be able to do anything. So you need to be careful about rooms without insurances, especially in terms of those Goshiwons and even studio apartments which seem fishy to you. So you really gotta make sure that the house has insurance, and you gotta make sure that the person is a trusted broker. So always beware and make sure that the house has its own insurance, because rooms without insurance are just a scam. They're for fraud, they're for tricking you into paying money so that the person can just run away with your money. So make sure to be careful about that. When you're finding an accommodation in Seoul, always keep in mind that you should visit those places in person. You should check out the area, the surroundings, and see if you're comfortable with them. Also, you should check if the house is actually furnished or not, because a lot of pictures, they do say that it's furnished. A lot of pictures show that the house is furnished, but actually the one you're going for is probably not furnished, or it's semi-furnished. So you should always check on the website as to what they're providing you. On top of that, sometimes I know you feel guilty looking at other real estate agencies, but please don't feel guilty and check out every possible house you want to, probably 3 or 4 in a day, before deciding where you want to live, because there's no point in getting coaxed by a real estate agent and you're not even happy with the house, because then you won't be happy with the place you're living in, because it will be a long-term contract. The contracts usually last a year. Mine is for 16 months, and you can obviously renew the contract after it's over, because that's what usually people go for if they really like the house they're living in. So go ahead and check out as many places you like, and feel free to tell the real estate agent that I'm checking out houses. I will keep it in mind. Yes, definitely do that. Don't feel guilty. Go ahead and just check out everything you want to. All studio apartments have a maintenance fee, anywhere from 50,000 won, which is really cheap, to $100 or $200. So you should always also check if the maintenance fee is too high or not, based on the place you're looking for. Also, when you're getting a house, you really need to keep in mind what type of house it is, because depending on its location, like if the house is a basement or a semi-basement, you may realize that it does not have enough ventilation, and the house kind of gets really humid, and there's this lingering basement stench to it. I lived in a basement house once, and damn, it was filled with fungus. Like every 2 or 3 days there would be fungus growing on the wall or the floor, and I had to remove it and clean it off. So during monsoons it's even a bigger problem, because going down through the steps, it's really dangerous. You can slip, you can fall, and it's really humid, wet, and quite mushy to live in a basement apartment. On the contrary, living on a hill, which I have, you don't really have everything around you, but you definitely have a good house. Like they're less expensive if you're living near a remote location, but again, if you do not have all the facilities and transportation facilities around you, there's no point of living in a remote location. And currently I could say that my current house is the ideal house, because it's a 15-minute walk to the university. It has bus stops in front of it, it has the subway, it has convenience stores and restaurants all around it. So find a location and in the price range you want, and really be vigilant of the house you're getting. Always remember that once you've found a house, you need to register your address within 15 days within the immigration office of your area, or you can go to the city hall and get it done. They do it for free. But if you exceed the 15-day period, they usually have a penalty fee for registering your address late, and I think it keeps increasing, and like for a month it's $100, so it keeps increasing day by day. So make sure to go and get your residence registered within 15 days. On top of that, you can also do this online. Lastly, I want to talk about the living expenses, like basic expenses such as food, transportation, my rent and everything. So yeah, let's get started with the living expenses. First of all, my monthly rent is 500,000 Korean won. Then there's my maintenance fee that I give to the building, which is 120,000 Korean won. It's super expensive, but it's okay. And then there's my phone bill, which is around 90,000 Korean won per month. I also have to pay for my national health insurance, which is 70,000 Korean won per month. And then there's my gas and electricity bills, which add up to 40,000 Korean won per month. Then there's the transportation. Had it not been COVID-19, it would probably be around 55,000 Korean won or 60 at most, because actually you don't really get that much time to go out when you're in university, but I like to go out anyways. And COVID-19 has really reduced on transportation costs, because the most I would do is like go down for a walk or go down to the convenience store, go to the campus for a walk, that's all. And all my friends live quite far. Seoul is quite big, so because of that we don't really meet each other that often. So because of that, all the eating at restaurants and transportation costs actually reduce. If you do like to go to cafes, which I really love doing, cafes can be expensive. So based on which cafe you go to, your costs can definitely increase or decrease. But because of COVID, I really couldn't do any of those things, so my costs really went down. Food costs anywhere from 300 to 350,000 Korean won, because I like to buy fruits along with food items through which I can make Korean food. Let me tell you, making Korean food really brings down the cost. So if you like cooking, then try learning how to cook Korean food. And if it suits your palate, that's even better. So if it suits your palate and if you can do it, then just cook Korean food. It really takes no time. It literally takes me around like 15 to 20 minutes and I'm done cooking. And it's just very cost effective and time effective. Like dishes like 돼지국밥, or it's like pork rice soup, kimchi jjigae, also known as kimchi soup, tofu soup like sundubu jjigae. Then you have miyeokguk seaweed soup. All these water-based diets, along with the convenience store rice, they're really cost effective. Also, if you do like eating out rather than cooking at home, going to a local Korean restaurant would be much more cheaper. It will be cheaper than definitely going to maybe an Italian restaurant or an Indian restaurant. So to just keep the costs down, it's usually going to a Korean restaurant. So food generally costs around $300 to $350. Fruits, however, are really expensive, so I tend to like balance it out when I'm doing my groceries. When it comes to monthly expenditure, now it's based on all the expenses we talked about. It adds up to 1,230,000 Korean won. Now I've made up the sum based on a fixed and tight budget, but it's not possible because you're a human being and you tend to have extra expenses, such as if you fall sick or if you like have a fracture, then you have more medical expenses. If you need something from the pharmacy, you have more expenses. So I think it's always safe to have savings or a miscellaneous budget. So that miscellaneous cost adds up to your monthly necessity, I guess. For person to person, the miscellaneous costs are different. For me, I like to attend dance classes, so that adds up to my miscellaneous cost. Along with that, you can say that the university textbooks add up as a miscellaneous cost, or maybe the fact that you want to travel around Korea, that could add up to your miscellaneous cost. So miscellaneous cost is completely different from person to person. I usually have I spend $1,500,000 in a month. Sorry, not dollars, Korean won in a month. 1,500,000 Korean won. It's cheaper to live in different parts of Korea. There are definitely different parts that are cheaper. Like when I was living in Busan definitely had cheaper food delivery than Seoul. Busan definitely was cheaper. So depending on where you're living, it is completely different. And with that, we have covered the housing in Korea, different types of housings, and the deposit and the living expenses. So based on whatever is comfortable for you, you can always go for that option, and based on your budget, you can always have your living expenses. And I hope that you liked the video. If you do have any more queries, make sure to put them in the comments so that I can reply, or you can always DM me on Instagram and I will enthusiastically solve your doubts and queries. I hope you liked the video and thank you for watching it. Bye!